What's up everyone, Jay here from Tap and Turn Gaming, coming at you today with another EDH deck tech. Today's deck tech is for a viewer request. One of our viewers, Jackman LeBlanc, requested to us that we do an Oona Queen of the Fae deck. As far as the theme that he wanted to go with the deck, he wanted a token/mill theme to it. And as far as the budget of the deck goes, he did want it as a relatively budget-friendly deck. I talked to him in the comments on one of our videos, and he said he kind of wanted, within the range that we normally do of $50 or so, but that if there were some cards that would really just work well into the deck, to not stray away from those kind of cards, as long as the deck was still, relatively budget friendly, which I believe it is. So the price of this deck as it stands right now is $70.27. That's not including the cost of Oona. She's about roughly a $3 card, but as you all know, we don't normally attribute the cost of the general into the overall cost of the deck, because if you want to play Oona Queen of the Fae, you need a copy of her. There's no two ways around it. So I know it's not the usual, maximum $50 that we usually do for our battling with a budget videos, but this particular request, it was said that it was okay if it went over that $50 mark, so long as it wasn't, an astronomical amount, and that the cards that were, maybe a few dollars just worked really well in the deck, which I believe they do. And $70, that's still a pretty obtainable budget for anybody, I believe. So, Jackman, I hope you enjoy the deck tech, and for everybody else watching, I hope you enjoy it as well. So let's kick it off here. The general, obviously, is Oona, Queen of the Fae. She's a 6-cost, 5/5 legendary fairy wizard with flying, and she has a pretty nice ability where you can pay a hybrid blue-black and X and choose a color. Target opponent exiles the top X cards of his or her library. For each card of the chosen color exiled this way, put a 1/1 blue and black fairy rogue creature token with flying onto the battlefield. So she's got a pretty potent ability, especially if you're playing against an opponent that's playing a monocolored deck. She's just going to wreck your opponent's face. And she's going to get you lots of 1/1 blue and black flyers. But even if you're playing someone that's playing maybe 2 colors, you still get a pretty damn good chance of, triggering that ability where you're going to generate the 1/1 fairies. So she's pretty cool. I like her a lot. So that's more or less what she does. First up, we're going to take a look at the land base for this deck, and with every other battling with a budget video that we've done in the past, we'll reiterate it again. If you really want to budgetize your deck, start with the lands. You'll see in the land base that there's no, shocks or fetches or original dual lands. The new Tangle lands, will run you $4 or $5. So you won't see any of those in here. You'll see very budget-friendly stuff. So first up, we have a Baron Moor for some cycling, Dimir Aqueduct, Dimir Guildgate, Dismal Backwater, Evolving Wilds, the budget man's fetch land, I guess you could say, as with Terramorphic Expanse, which is in the list of the lands as well. Halimar Depths to filter our top 3. Then we run 14 islands. Dwar Isle Refuge, Lonely Sandbar for some more cycling, Rogue's Passage to make a dude unblockable, 14 swamps, and our Terramorphic Expanse. So as you can see in the land base, pretty budget friendly. We don't have the Ravnica shocks or any of the other dual lands that will run you $3, $4, $5, $6, even more. We just went with a pretty basic land base so we could keep our budget intact. Next up, we'll take a look at the enchantments that we run. We run Attrition for a sack outlet that'll let us kill guys, and with the amount of tokens that we can generate in the deck, it won't be a problem for us to sack a guy. Dictate of Erebos for that Grave Pact, essentially. Grave Pact's like an 8 or 9. I've seen it up towards $10 just for that card. So Dictate of Erebos is a very budget-friendly version of that card. Dire Undercurrents is really nice. Whenever we have a blue guy come into play under our control, we can have target player draw a card. And whenever a black guy comes into play under our control, we may have target player discard a card. Very nice with Oona. So if you generate 5 of the fairies off of her, you can have target player draw 5 cards and then target player discard 5 cards. So very, very nice with the commander of the deck. Equilibrium. Whenever you play a creature spell, you may pay 1. If you do, bounce a guy, so that's pretty nice. Malevolent Awakening, pay 1 and 2 black and sack a guy to get a guy back from the yard to our hand, so that's pretty cool. Memory Erosion, whenever an opponent casts a spell, they mill the top 2. Mind Slash, a sack outlet that lets us choose a card from our opponent's hand and they discard it, but we can only do that anytime we could play a sorcery, but that's okay. Hand Disruption is always nice. Palace Siege for the cons choice on it to get the creature recursion from our graveyard. You can choose dragons if you like for, at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 2 and you gain 2, but 9 times out of 10 we're going to pick cons on this. Shapeshifter's Marrow is pretty cool. So not only will it mill... at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that player reveals the top card of his or her library. Bleh, can't speak today, apparently. If it's a creature card, the player puts that card into their graveyard, and then this becomes a copy of that card. So it will only mill if they reveal a creature. If they don't reveal a creature, it, doesn't get milled off their deck. But if it is a creature, it goes to the graveyard, and then this becomes a copy of that creature, which is pretty cool. Then we have Sphinx's Tutelage. Whenever you draw a card, target opponent puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. If they're both non-land cards that share a color, repeat this process. So you can potentially, rack up some pretty substantial mill on your opponent. And you can pay 6 to draw a card and discard a card. Next, we'll take a look at the sorceries that we run. We run Curse of the Swine to exile guys, and then for each guy that we exile, its controller gets a 2/2 green boar creature. I'll gladly give my opponent a 2/2 guy to exile their, huge threat that they have on the board. Dark Petition, a tutor, and if we're spell masteried, we get 3 black mana to our mana pool. Extinguish All Hope, just a wrath effect for us. Increasing Ambition is another tutor for us that we can flash back for 7 and a black, and if we flash it back, we tutor for 2 cards. Life's Finale, another wrath that allows us to search target opponent's library for 3 creature cards and put them in their graveyard. Mind Grind will mill each opponent for the X value that we dump into it. And Traumatize, target player puts the top half of his or her library rounded down into their graveyard, because why not? We want to... the deck has a mill theme to it, so we have to play Traumatize. Next up are the instants that we run in the deck. Basically all counter spells here. They're more or less there, to either stop our opponent's early game stuff, or once we get Oona on the board, to use those to protect her from being removed. So we have Deprive, Dissipate, Dissolve, Fairy Trickery, Familiar's Ruse, Induce Paranoia, Psychic Strike. We actually do have one instant that's not a counterspell, Reality Shift. It exiles a guy, and then its controller manifests the top card of their deck. And then Undermine. So 8 out of the 9 instants are counterspells. Like I said, to either disrupt our opponent early game or stop them from removing our general once we get it on the board. Next up are the artifacts. We have Altar of the Brood, because it'll mill each opponent whenever we have a permanent enter the battlefield under our control. So each opponent will mill the top card of their deck. Illusionist Bracers is really nice on Oona, so if you equip this to her and you activate her ability, you copy it just immediately. So, if you dump, I don't know, 5 mana into the X cost on that, and by activating that, it's going to copy that ability. Your opponent's going to mill another 5 cards, and then you can potentially get more fairies. Nim Deathmantle is there basically for the creature recursion by being able to pay 4 colorless whenever one of our creatures goes to the yard, and we can pay that and bring that creature right back to the board and immediately attach this to it. Skull Clamp, because we're going to generate lots of 1/1s with Oona, so why not draw some cards off of it? And Swiftfoot Boots for the protection, mainly on Oona. Next up, we'll take a look at the creatures of the deck, which is actually the last category. So first we have Bloodgift Demon, basically Phyrexian Arena on a 5/4 flyer, so that's nice. Cemetery Reaper, he's probably not going to pump many zombies because we do have a few zombies in the deck, but he's basically there to exile creature cards from our opponent's yard, and we get tokens out of it, so that's nice. Chasm Skulker, whenever you draw a card, you put a 1/1 counter on him, and when he dies, you get X 1/1 blue squid creature tokens with Island Walk onto the battlefield, where X is the number of 1/1 counters on him when he died, so he's pretty cool. Clone, everybody knows what that does. Consuming Aberration. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in your opponent's graveyards, so that encompasses everybody. So if you're playing a multiplayer game, this guy is probably going to be huge. And whenever you cast a spell, each opponent reveals cards from the top of his or her library until they reveal a land card. Then they put those cards into their graveyard. So mass mill on this guy, and he can get friggin' huge. He's good. Crypt Gas to double our black mana, and the Extort, isn't bad to have either. Deadeye Navigator, because he's just broken. Whatever you pair him whatever creature, you pair him with, those creatures not only are going to be almost impossible to kill for every 2 mana that you have, if the creature has an enter the battlefield effect, you can just abuse the crap out of it. But it's mainly there to disrupt our opponent from removing stuff off of our board with this guy, because we actually don't have too many enter the battlefield effects in this deck. Duskmantle Guildmage for the ability to pay 1 a blue and a black. Whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere this turn, that player loses 1 life. So if you're about to mill somebody for a lot of cards, you can activate that and make it hurt for them as well to their life total. And then you can pay 2 a blue and a black. Target player puts the top 2 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Evil Twin, a clone that will kill whatever it's cloning for a blue and a black and tapping it. Fathom Feeder, he's a 2-cost 1/1 with Devoid, Death Touch, and Ingest. So he kind of fits the mill theme, so when he hits, he's going to exile the top card of your opponent's deck. But why we mainly have him in there is for the ability to pay 3 a blue and a black and draw a card, and each opponent exiles the top card of their library. So mill and card draw is pretty good. Harvester of Souls will draw us cards for whenever... I can't talk today. Whenever another non-token creature dies, you may draw a card. So he draws us cards when non-token creatures go to the graveyard. Jace's Mindseeker is a 6-cost 4/4 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent puts the top 5 cards of their deck into their graveyard, and then you can cast an instant or sorcery card from among those without paying its mana cost. Lazav, 3/3 with Hexproof for 4. And whenever a creature goes to your opponent's yard, you may have Lazav become a copy of that creature, except he retains his name and Hexproof and this ability. Then we have Lich Lord of Unks, 3-cost 2/2. You can pay a blue and a black and tap him to get a 1/1 blue and black zombie wizard. Then you can pay 2 blue and 2 black. Target player loses X life and puts the top X cards of their library into their graveyard, where X is the number of zombies you control. Next we have Moloku, the Clouded Mirror, a 5-cost 2/4 flyer. You can pay 1 and bounce a land to your hand to get a 1/1 blue flyer. So, he's good, particularly with like Halimar Depths. You can bounce that, get a guy, and then put it back down and filter your top 3 again. But he's more or less there just to, on the spot, generate us like a blue flying blocker if we need it. Mind Shrieker, scroll down a bit here. 2 cost 1/1 flyer, you can pay 2. Target player mills their top card, and then Mind Shrieker gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is that card's converted mana cost, so he can get pretty big pretty quick. Mirko Vosk, Mind Drinker, a 5 cost 2/4 flyer. When he hits a player, that player reveals cards from the top of his or her library until they reveal 4 land cards, then they put those into their graveyard. So anybody that knows the card Mind Funeral, it essentially does what he does when he hits somebody. And there's a reason why Mind Funeral is like a $4 or $5 uncommon. Because it's pretty good. So, you can potentially mill, a good 10% of your opponent's deck, maybe even more with this guy when he hits. Muldrifter, when he enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards, and you can evoke him for 2 and a blue. Nezumi, Grave Robber, there for some more graveyard hate, and when we flip him, he becomes Night Eyes the Desecrator, where you can pay 4 and a black and resurrect any creature out of any graveyard on your side of the board. Feynaz, God of Deception, 5 cost 4/7 indestructible god. As long as your devotion to blue and black is less than 7, he's not a creature. But that's okay, because he turns all of our creatures into creatures with an ability where you can tap them and your opponent mills the top X cards of their deck, where X is the creature that you tap's toughness. So he's pretty nice. Phyrexian Plague Lord, a free sack outlet that can potentially kill creatures off. We can sack a guy to give something a -1/-1. Scroll down a bit here. And then we can also tap him and sacrifice himself to give a creature -4/-4. Reaper from the Abyss, a 6 cost 6/6 flyer. At the beginning of each end step, if a creature died this turn, destroy target non-demon creature. So, with the amount of creature tokens that we can generate, and we've got a pretty decent amount of sack outlets in this deck, we can consistently morbid at the beginning of each end step. And we have Selhoff Occultist, a 3 cost 2/3. Whenever it or another creature dies, target player mills their top card. Sidisi Undead Vizier, 5 cost 4/6 with Death Touch and Exploit. And when you exploit a guy with it, you Demonic Tutor. So pretty cool, another access to a tutor there. Sire of Stagnation is a 6 cost 5/7 with the Void. And whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, that player exiles their top 2 cards, and you draw 2 cards. So pretty similar, kind of, to Consecrated Sphinx. Not on the same power level as that card, but it's definitely budget friendly. It's only, about a $2 card. So that beats, the 15 some odd dollars that Consecrated Sphinx usually is. Then we have Stitcher Geralf, a 5 cost 3/4. Where you can pay 2 and a blue and tap him. Each player mills their top 3 cards. And then you can exile up to 2 creature cards that were milled this way, and then you put an XX blue zombie creature token onto the board, where X is the total power of the cards exiled. So not only does he mill everybody, he gets you a huge friggin' zombie token in the process as well. Stronghold Assassin is a 3 cost 2/1 where we can tap him and sack a guy to destroy target non-black creature. Talaran Sky Summoner, 4 cost 2/2. When we cast an instant or sorcery spell, we get a 2/2 blue flying drake. So, we have a pretty decent amount of instants and sorceries in the deck. We have 16. So, 16% of our deck essentially are instants and sorceries. So Talaran will, get us 2/2 blue flyers off of casting those. Undercity Informers, a 3 cost 2/3, where we can pay 1 and sack a guy. Target player reveals cards from the top of their deck until they reveal land, and then they put those into their graveyard. Some more mill for us, and Viscera Seer, where we can sack a guy to scry 1. So with the amount of tokens that we can potentially generate in the deck, we can use those to set up our draws with this guy. So that about wraps up the deck tech, guys. Just a couple of other things to talk about real quick about it. The color balance is relatively even. We do have a little bit more blue stuff than black stuff, but it's a relatively good balance, I'd say. With any EDH deck, a third of your deck's going to be lands. This deck's relatively creature heavy at 30, but it does really kind of encompass the theme that Jackman wanted with either producing tokens or milling our opponent out. Plus, I'm just a guy that likes a lot of creatures in his deck, so that's why we have 30 creatures in this deck. Then we have a very small portion of artifacts. 10% of our deck is enchantments. And then we have 7 sorceries and 9 instants. As far as our mana curve, it's not terrible. We have a couple of things to play on turn 1, then much more on turn 2. Then we spike up the highest on turn 3. Then we kind of drop down at turn 4. Then more stuff on turn 5, and then we curve down. So we kind of have a little oddball, from 3 to 4 to 5 for the mana costs, and then we curve down from there. So it's not a terrible mana curve. As far as the average mana cost, it's 3.66, so that's not bad. But that about wraps it up, guys. So Jackman, I hope you enjoyed the deck tech. I hope this was kind of on the lines of what you were looking for, and that that $70 price of the deck isn't too bad for you. Hope it's something that you can work with. There are cards that you could probably cut out of the deck to save a few dollars, but I really felt like the cards that we put into this deck really kind of encompass the theme that you were looking for tokens and mill. So. And everybody else watching, I hope you enjoyed it as well. But that about wraps up everything. So leave me some comments in the comment section below what you think of the deck. Thumbs up the video if you enjoyed it so that we know to keep making Battling with a Budget videos and just deck techs in general. And if you're not already subscribed to Tap and Turn Gaming, please hit that subscribe button. We really do appreciate it. But this has been Jay with Tap and Turn Gaming. Again, hope everybody enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. And we'll catch you later in another video. Thanks a lot for watching.